folks. Welcome to Rational Science. I'm on the road and I'm with some friends, staying with some friends. Yeah, believe it or not, I still have friends despite of all the things that I say about mathematical physics. And so I'll be transmitting here from middle of nowhere, okay? And we're going to be doing a singularity today. Singularity, what is a singularity? In fact, we'll find out that it's very scary what a singularity is. Before I get to that, there was an individual who asked a couple questions, and I think it was overdue to give some kind of answer to the type of questions that he asked. So I'm going to start with that first and then move on to the singularity, okay? Okay, so here goes. A fellow says, why does everyone want to argue with Bill? Why aren't people more interested in this man's ideas? He makes so much sense to me. The professionals should really be more interested in this man. I don't care if he's right or wrong. He is furthering science. That should be the goal. Bill, please answer me. Why is it that mainstream science rejects you? Why is it that mainstream science doesn't want to involve you? You would definitely be able to further our understanding of this world. You've definitely done that for me. Well, first of all, I want to thank the fellow for some kind words, okay? And yeah, I think we have to put it in the right context, what's been going on. You know, I've been with this now for, 26 years almost, 25, 26 years. First of all, I want to make sure everybody can hear me, so please let me know otherwise, okay? Because again, I'm transmitting from the middle of nowhere, and so I don't know how good the internet is. Let me know. Anyways, this fellow asked this question, or these questions, and I do want to give some kind of answer to that. You know what's okay? Thank you. So that people get an idea of, what the context is here. Why am I against mathematical physics and so on, And I don't know. I have no idea where I am. Some part of the world. Okay, so this is, let me start with this, okay? And I think most of you will relate to it to some degree, okay? And let's see, this is the way it works. We have a lot of ignorance out there. The majority of the people out there have no idea what the mathematical physicists are saying, doing, what their work is. They use all this fancy language that nobody understands. The mathematical physicists tell you that in your face that they don't understand their own theories. So we're wondering, what are we doing as far as physics is concerned, real physics? And it's very hard to understand, what the mathematicians are saying. And of course, nobody understands them. And people who simply dabble a little bit in science or like it or physics or whatever, they come in, they listen to these guys, tell them whatever they want. And it's a lot like the priests of the, in the first 400 years or 500 years of the Christian era. You had all these priests, these monks go out there and they would tell people whatever. And they were the only ones who knew how to read and write. And so what they would do is they would tell them what the Bible says. And you can imagine all these peasants, they didn't know anything. They had to go to rely on this fella to tell them what the Bible says. Because he's the only one who had read it and maybe understood some of it, And so this is what the priest would tell them. And so in a way, the priest was putting his words, his mind, into the minds of the peasants, because the peasants had no other choice but to listen to the priest and accept what he was telling them, because he was the only one who was in touch with God, so to speak. He was the only guy who knew how to read. And so that's the same situation today. You have all these mathematicians, and they're the priests of the modern world. They tell you what to believe in, and you say, well, should I believe that or not? Well, this guy's an authority. I mean, he went to school. He's got 10 years of math behind him. He's got to know how the universe works. And that's the problem. These people don't understand. They have misconceived the universe completely. They don't understand how it works. But they're the ones who say, hey, but I studied math. I can tell you how it works. And so people believe this. That's part of the equation. The other half of the equation is technology. People have this in their minds that, if we have all this technology out there that works, it's because the theories are correct. The mathematicians seem to know what they're doing if we can produce products with it that I can use. So they're confusing technology with science, with explanations, and they're also confusing the fact that these people are using math when the questions they're asking are qualitative questions. They're not questions related to quantities, right? They're related to, I want to know why this pencil falls to the floor. That's all I want to know. I don't need any math for that. But most people out there don't understand that. And so we have to put it in the right context where all this started, right? And they accept things on the basis of authority. You have the one-eyed leading the blind, so to speak. Ignoramuses allow the scientists, so-called scientists, right, to place their mind in their own heads, right? And so the mathematicians are doing all the thinking for all these peasants out there, people who simply dabble a little bit in so-called physics. And part of the problem is that these people think that the mathematicians are doing physics. And they're not. They're doing math. They can't translate their quantitative equations, their concepts of math. They cannot translate them into physics, into ordinary speech to explain something straightforward. And so they give them this runaround with fancy words. They're talking about energy, they talk about fields, they talk about charge, and people don't understand squat about all that. And that's why a lot of people have abandoned physics in high school. They say, well, I don't understand any of that, so I'll just let the experts tell me what they found out, and I'll just believe them. And that's the situation today. Okay, and so this is the situation I illustrated here for you. Okay, this is what's going on. You have the scarecrow, right? He wants a brain. So he goes to the whiz, right? And so they just follow the herd of buffalo. Fall down the precipice if necessary, right? But they just go and do their herd thing. You got to get a brain of your own. If you got to do your own thinking, and if you go out there and try to borrow a brain, there are not too many very intelligent brains out there. Okay, they're very scarce. Okay, so all I can give you is a little recommendation. And that's meanwhile, right? Remember that science has nothing to do with democracy. How many people voted for a theory with authority. The fact that the guy studied math at some university and he's got this big title, or maybe even a Nobel Prize or a Templeton Prize. Those are worthless. Those are given from mathematicians to mathematicians. They're all worthless. As far as, they're worth a lot in money, but they're worthless as far as science is concerned. And then, people say, well, tradition, this is the way we always did it. So you got to forget about all that. You got to get your own brain. You got to think on your own. You can't let the mathematicians think for you. If it doesn't sound right, criticize, ask questions, put them on the spot. That's what you got to do. Okay, here's the second part of that. I've been shadow banned for at least 16 years. Okay, YouTube. They don't promote my site. Exactly why, how the algorithm works, I have no idea. But, I get a lot of stuff from Brian Greene and from Neil Tyson and all these people. But I'm sure they don't get any of my stuff. So that's called shadow banning. I don't get, my word doesn't get around. And a lot of them accuse me of being arrogant. And I need to address that, Am I arrogant? Well, yeah, I probably am, right? Am I ashamed of it? Am I going to apologize? Absolutely not. Let me tell you why. This is one reason, okay? Not the only reason, but, let me start there first. When I came out with my theory, and I was quite naive about the scientific world out there. I was really very naive. I thought I'd go in there, talk. I went into some of the forums, scientific forums. One of them run really by Stephen Hawking. And I stayed to 3 or 4 forums until finally I gave up, And when I'd go in there, I'd say, hey, guys, I got a theory to share, blah, blah, blah. And I would tell them my theory. Man, I could not believe the backlash. I could not believe it. It was just pure insult, ridicule, and anything you can imagine. You can't touch this religion known as mathematical physics because it's worse than, born-again Christians or, Jehovah's Witnesses. It's worse than all that. These people are ultra-fanatic, and so you got to keep that in mind. You don't know what you're dealing with. And so I don't apologize. If they're arrogant, I'm going to be as arrogant as they are. I can beat them at their own game. I have no problem with that. So no, I'm not going to apologize. And here I'm going to give you an example. Okay, this is an example out there. Okay, for those of you who think that math is okay and they're very serious scientists and so on. Here you have, this is Juanito Baez. He's a so-called physicist, actually a mathematical physicist, a mathematician who's out there in California. And he created the crackpot index. And this crackpot index is at UC Riverside. It's part of their official, platform, their site, okay, their URL. You can find them there. You can see it's in their primary site, right? If you go there, you'll find this. You'll find Juanito's crackpot index, and you'll find some of these points that I pulled out there. What does he talk about? He says he talks about what is false, meaning his opinion. Or the mathematician's opinion. If they say it's false, it's false. They don't care if it's real or not, or whether it's truth, or whether Mother Nature smiles at you. If it's false to them, they say it's not part of science. And again, false is an issue of opinion. And then you have experiments. They talk about experiments. They say that if you don't do an experiment, you're not doing science. They talk about evidence. You have to present evidence. And what is evidence for? Just to persuade and convince people, make them change their mind, so to speak. What does a prosecutor do to the jury? Presents evidence, right? Because he's trying to convince the jury to vote in his favor, in his side of the case. You'll see that they win prizes. He's worried about the fact that people offer prizes for anyone who can find flaws in their theory. That's more or less what all these people do. The Nobel Prize, the Wolf Prize, Templeton, and so many others that are out there. They give them all these prizes, right? It's all about money. And then you have, the good part here says they do predictions, right? But they don't explain why. And then at the same time, you can see his contradiction between 17 and 26 there, points 17 to 26. In number 26, he says, 20 points for talking about how great your theories is, but never actually explaining it. So the question is whether, explanations are part of the scientific method. And so for this, we go to Donald Simonek, Professor Emeritus at University here in Pennsylvania, and he says, science doesn't explain, science describes. Okay, so now we have it. Okay, so yeah, these people don't explain anything. They never have an explanation. But he says that, Juanito says, that you have to have an explanation because you're not explaining, how your theory works. And that's exactly what happens with quantum mechanics and general relativity. All they have is these irrational explanations for how the universe works. Then you have all these other little things there. You'll see all around there where I put quantum and relativity. They make all these same errors. For example, number 14, you don't define your terms. What is it? Number 23 there says, for every use of science fiction works or myths as if they were fact. Exactly. That's what quantum mechanics and relativity do. There you have 50 points for claiming you have revolutionary theory, but giving no concrete testable predictions. Yeah, predictions are just descriptions. They're nothing. They have nothing to do with science. Science is about explaining, and if you don't explain your prediction, meaning you go to the past and tell us what happened, or where you got the idea, where you got the experience, your explanation, then all you have is a description. And so, these people, they ridicule anyone who challenges them. That's where the problem is. And so I don't feel sorry for them at all. Okay, I don't apologize to them. Nothing to apologize to these people. They talk total idiocy. Everything that comes out of Cambridge, or Harvard, or any of those schools, the Ivy League, California schools, it's all garbage, all poppycock. Nothing of it survives. All of the explanations are ridiculous, irrational. They don't belong in science. Okay, that's how simple it is. And so, yeah, I'm on a war path against these people, and I've been on it for 25 years, really, on YouTube for about 16 years. And, I think there is a level of shadow banning. Exactly why or how that works, I have no idea. Who knows? Who understands all those algorithms? Only YouTube knows, and I don't even think they could tell me. Okay, so what is the task of physics according to me? Okay, this is the way I see it. The task of physics is to tell the world why. Why? Explanation, mechanism, causes. Why the universe works the way it does. Okay, cause and mechanism. That's what we're interested in. We want to know why a pencil falls to the floor. That's simple. I don't need to know how fast it falls. I want to know why it falls. Okay? And math only serves as a handicap. Because, we're introducing a tool that has no purpose for the questions that we're asking. We're asking, why does this fall to the ground? They say, let me give you the equation. Let me give you a bunch of numbers and talk about infinities and energy and fields and who knows, stuff that has nothing to do with the question I've asked. Okay? You have mathematicians since the days of Gilbert and Galileo. They have emphasized experiment and math, especially Galileo. He was the guy who said, the language of physics is in math. Absolutely not Galileo. In fact, they got that from the Greeks, because the Greeks also, Pythagoras, Plato, all of them, they said math. What was the sign on the door of Plato's academy? No one who doesn't know geometry may enter here, or something along those lines. And so, they all been doing math for hundreds of years. And then what they did in the 17th century, what they added was experiment. They said you got to do experiments aside from math as well. And we're saying we don't need experiments, we don't need math. I need an explanation. That's what I want, that's what I seek. I want an explanation. That's what a rational individual wants. I want a mechanism. The only way you're going to get a mechanism is by making the invisible visible. You have to go in there and identify the mediators that Mother Nature, Father Universe, whoever you believe in, what they use to produce gravity, magnetism, electricity, all these invisible things that, that we see in front of us or that we don't see in front of us. You see a pencil fall to the ground. Well, hopefully something came in contact with a pencil. Otherwise, you're doing black magic. So there's something there. We just need to identify it. And once you see that, the mechanism is simple. Easy stuff. No-brainer, in fact. Experiments in math help us not one bit in elucidating how this universe works. Okay, we don't need math, not for explanations. And science is explanations. Description: I can describe a chair and measure it, measure a table. Is that science? Measuring a table said, no, it's not 1 meter. It's 1 meter and 1 micrometer. I measured it more accurately. So. Is that science? Okay, measuring and putting an equation. And so math only prevents us from understanding how this universe works. We have a totally misconception, mathematical physics, right? The mathematicians have a total misconception. They completely misconceived how this universe works. There are no black holes, there is no dark matter, Big Bang never happened, there are no such things as energy or field, there's no such thing as virtual particle, particle cannot be at two places at once. I can go on and on and on with all the garbage, poppycock that comes out of mathematical physics. These people study 10 years to give you irrational explanations. And I don't care about their math. They can talk all they want about their math in their own club. But when they come out here to the world of physics, they had better have a physical interpretation for how this universe works. They're not there yet. They don't even know what space-time is. Four-dimensional. They say they can't imagine it. No kidding. I can't imagine it either. Okay. Anyways, mathematicians allege that they reject Aristotelian method. But what they do, they actually follow this method. Because what did Aristotle's method say? Well, you got to convince people. You got to persuade them. That's essentially the bottom line with the Aristotelian method. You need to convince people. And that's not science. That's called religion. Okay? And that's what they do. They talk about proof, evidence, prediction. Those are all elements of religion. They have nothing to do at all with science. So that's where the problem starts. And that's more or less where it ends. Okay? One fellow, and here, this is an example, okay? One fellow says the following, says, he said, Cavendish with his experiment has explained that gravity is an attractive interaction between objects with mass. Actually, that's not an explanation. Saying that a mass attracts a mass, that's only a description. But he doesn't understand that. So I told him that, it's a little more than just a description. He says, about gravity, I can tell you what it is, but no one can tell you how it works. So he understands what a mechanism is, okay? But then he says, what do you mean by mechanism? What is a mechanism? He's telling me that he cannot explain what the mechanism, then he said, well, but what is a mechanism? So if they don't understand even what a mechanism is, how can they even explain to you a mechanism? They're still in less than kindergarten. They're still toddlers, babies, as far as understanding how this universe works. They don't even know what questions to ask, what questions a rational individual asks. They don't understand that. And but he says there that it works by transformation of energy. Yeah, he doesn't understand that either. That energy is not a mediator. You cannot say that you're going to transform energy, because you can transform wood, a tree into a chair. You can transform that because you have an object turned into another object. You cannot transform energy into mass or into time or into field, because those are all concepts. That's like saying you're going to transform love into intelligence. Makes no sense whatsoever. Not in physics, at least. Okay, and so this is me. This is where it ends. Okay, here you see it. Okay, here's Bill Gates, with his sword and shield, little ant, fighting against a bunch of elephants out there, herd of elephants. Okay, the mathematical world has billions of dollars. They have all these centers, think tanks, universities, etc. And I'm a little guy just out there fighting these elephants. I'll leave it up to you to figure out how much of a chance I have of getting, the theory out to the world when these guys control absolutely everything. So yeah, it's an unequal fight, an uneven field, that we've got. We don't have a level playing field, and I didn't create that. That's what I inherited. I was born, and then this is the world I found, okay? I didn't invent all this mathematical nonsense, poppycock that they have out there that has nothing to do with reality, with how the universe works, with how Mother Nature works. All of the stuff that they have is totally irrelevant. And if my theory happens to hit the public, these people will die in one day, because none of it survived. Absolutely none of it. Nothing of quantum, nothing of relativity, nothing of string theory, none of those survived. Not even the electric universe, the flat earthers, all get washed, etherists, they all get washed away. Okay, because this is totally different. So once we discover the mediators that Mother Nature uses, Father Universe out there, Mother Nature and Father Universe, once you discover those mediators, we're done with physics. We need no more physics. Okay, we can all understand everything. We can understand why a pencil falls to the floor. We can understand how how a magnet attracts another. We can understand all that. And we're done. Then we don't need any more physics. We understand the basics. That's the story there. Okay, let's move on to the subject matter today, which is singularity. Let's see if we can do this. Here goes. This is more or less the outline that I'm going to follow, okay? Again, singularity we're talking about here. Big Bang requires a singularity. You need to understand singularity. You understand Big Bang. You need a singularity to understand what a black hole is. Primarily there, that's where it's used most often, okay? And we're going to find out that, that we have a problem with the definition. Why? Because they haven't defined the term singularity very well. That's one issue. And the other one is that they have like mass and energy, all these other words. They have 10 definitions, 10 notions of what a singularity is. They explain it different ways. Everybody has a different notion. So they have no idea what a singularity is. We're going to find out that today. Then whether singularity actually exists. I mean, does a singularity exist, or is this a figment of mathematical imagination? I mean, is there a real physical entity called a singularity out there? What does it look like, Okay, so we have all these things that we got to take care of. And if the singularity is not real, if there's no such thing as a singularity, why do we need an equation for the black hole? Why is anybody researching black holes and creating equations for stuff that doesn't exist? Because if it exists, like I can only give you an example. As an engineer, I used to go to the engineering manager, and you have to justify money, because you're going to carry out a project of whatever kind. You can say, look, I need this project. Why do you need it? How much money? Those are the questions they ask you. And you have to justify everything. You have to do a design of experiment before you do an experiment, right? In engineering, okay? So these people say, oh, black hole, I'm going to research it. Well, where's the money coming from? What do you need the money for? What are you going to research? And they say, well, I'm going to investigate something that doesn't exist. This is what they're telling you. What are the people in Harvard and Cambridge doing? They're investigating stuff that doesn't exist, or that they have yet to prove the existence of, okay? And so you say, I'm going to give money to that? And they are. That's what they're doing. They're giving money to these people to investigate stuff that doesn't exist, or that they have not shown in any way that it exists. It's just speculation. It's just inference, right? They're inferring that there are black holes out there, and each one has a event horizon and a singularity and all this other nonsense. Have they gone inside the event horizon to find out if there's a singularity in the center? Of course not. So there's no practical thing. They never touched a black hole. They never seen a black hole. They claim they only see the stuff that's falling in or coming out, but they've never seen the black hole itself. Like, they say, well, it's got to be a black hole. What else could it be? That's the argument. And if that's the argument, so far we don't have a proof of the existence. Okay, at least the way the mathematicians always work. They want proof. They want solid evidence that there's something there. They don't have that evidence. They have speculation. They have inference. Okay, that's all they have. They claim that they proved it. How did they prove it? How do you prove the existence of a zero-dimensional singularity surrounded by a concept known as an event horizon? How do you prove that in physics? Right? Do you touch it? Do you send a rocket through there? I mean, how do you prove that? What kind of experiment? Is this just an observation? Say, well, we think that that's what's in there. What else could it be? Is that it? Is that all we have? Is that the proof? And then the question is whether this is a singularity, right? Belongs to math or to physics. If it's math, if it's just a calculation and there's an infinity there, well, that's one issue. But if it's something that belongs to physics, like if it's real, right? If it exists, well, then it belongs to physics. Physics is, science of existence. So, yeah, if it's physics, fine, that's one issue. But if it's just math, hey, take your math with you, don't bring it into physics. Then what happens when you fall into a singularity? I mean, do you get spaghettified? Do you get threaded to pieces, crushed out of existence? What happens to you? They have all these different versions, okay, of what happens to you. And the funny part is how long the trip takes. Some people say you get there in 2 seconds. Others say, no, it takes a long time. Others say you never reach there. So I'll leave it up to you to figure out, which one is true. Anyways, we have the testimonies of all these people that are going to help us out. We have two Nobel Prizes there, Roger Penrose and Kip Thorne. So all these people are going to tell us, exactly, what a singularity is. Well, let's hope so, okay? Okay, so let's begin with these folks. Give me a second here. Let me remove this. Here we go. Let's start with the definitions. And here we have the definition of physics, okay, or supposedly physics. This is primarily out of the Wikipedia. It says singularity is a condition in which gravity is predicted to be so intense that space-time itself would break down catastrophically. Space-time would break down catastrophically? Is space-time a physical object that breaks down and crashes and gets crushed out of existence, or what? And so you look up space-time, also in the Wikipedia, it says a mathematical model. Oh my God. We already started on the wrong foot, because I thought we were going to talk about physics. They talk about a mathematical model that fuses the three dimensions of space and the one what? Dimension of time? What do you mean dimension of time? Time is a number line, not a dimension. The dementia is what they have in all these universities. That's dementia. But the dimension, time is not a dimension. Time is a number line. So, but irrespective, space-time is a concept. And they're talking about the space-time breaking down catastrophically, whatever that means. And it says, continues, says, a singularity is by definition no longer part of the regular space-time and cannot be determined by where or when. Okay? The funny part there, they have no idea about the singularity, where it is or when it is, right? And it turns out that exists, if you're going to use the word real or exist, requires a location. You need to have a where, okay? Because otherwise it doesn't exist, okay? That's part of their problem there. And the majority of that problem is that they never define words properly, scientifically, okay? Now there you have gravitational singularities exist. Okay, that's what they say. They exist at a junction between general relativity and quantum mechanics, somewhere in between, right? Twilight zone, somewhere there. And trying to find a complete and precise definition of singularities in the theory of general relativity remains a difficult problem. In other words, to this day, they haven't defined, they haven't, being able to determine what a singularity is, because they have all these notions. And that's the great problem. They don't have definitions. And so you keep chasing, all these people around the block, because they can never tell you what you're going to be analyzing, what you're going to be criticizing. If they had a definition, you could at least sink your teeth into it. But they don't have that. They don't have a definition. But they go out and tell you that they've proven it, and that they work trying to make equations regarding the singularity. And here they show you that they don't even have a definition of the singularity that they're supposedly investigating. A singularity in general relativity can be defined by curvature becoming infinite or by a geodesic being incomplete. Absolutely not. What it does is not a definition. Okay, those definitions that they have in mathematical physics, functional definitions, they don't work. They're irrational. Or operational definition. They say, we're going to tell you what the definition is at the end of my dissertation. First, I'm going to tell you everything I know about a singularity except the definition. And at the end, you'll find out what the definition of the singularity was after you heard my whole dissertation. No, that's not the way it works in science. In science, you begin, give us a definition, then we can follow your presentation. That's the way it works in science. These people want to do it in reverse with operational and functional definitions, because they cannot define the word singularity in this case, but none of the words. They can't define energy, mass, nothing. Time, none. Okay, here's the mathematical definition of singularity. In mathematics, right? A singularity is a point at which a given mathematical object, what the hell is that, is not defined. For example, where the value of the function is not defined as involving a division by zero. Okay, so, when you divide by zero, they call it infinity. They put that little figure 8 sign there, slanted, lying down, right? And they say it's infinity, whatever that means. Go to infinity and find out, Oh, good luck. Okay, so that's the problem. The problem is they have this mathematical nonsense, and they try to bring it into physics. That's where the problem is. If they're going to talk math, talk math. If you want to come in physics, talk physics. Then we'll talk about real and exist, okay? Location and objects and so on and down the line. So here's one example, okay? Like if you have 1 over x, right? You get these curves. If you go to the right side, to the positive side, you have 1 over x. As x approaches 0, right, y goes to infinity. That's what they say. And the problem there is that when you do a negative of this, as you approach 0, y goes to negative infinity. And so the function is discontinuous at that point. Okay, that means that because they cannot figure out why it's not continuous at that point, they say, well, it's undefined, and we call that undefinition. Remember this undefinition, we'll call it a singularity. So singularity by definition is an undefined term. That's more or less what they're telling you. Take it or leave it. I know you don't like it, but that's what they have. Okay, here we have Brain Green, and he confirms that for us. Okay, he says a singularity in physics, the word really refers to any region of space and time where the conditions are so extreme that our mathematics breaks down. Okay, so mathematics breaks down, whatever that means. What do you mean breaks down? Fortunately, we have a physicist on YouTube that tells us exactly what all that means. Thank God for these people, right? Here it is. Singularity, a point where a function is undefined. Okay, we got that. Defining by 0 is undefined. That's an example, okay? Infinite, right? What's y when x equals 0? Yeah, in the 1 over x, right? Undefined. The laws of math are crushed out of existence at the singularity. That's what this person says. Gravity and density become infinitely large in a black hole. Okay, so what does infinite gravity and density mean? We don't know. There you have it, folks. Now you have a proper scientific definition of what a singularity is. Okay, no complaints, please. Yeah, that's where we stand today. Nobody has any idea what they're talking about. It's an undefined term. It's a center of the object, mathematical object, that all the mathematical physicists are studying out there. All the string theorists are dealing with black holes, and nobody can define the singularity. Nobody can tell you what a singularity is. Is it a physical object? Is it remember it was the star that collapsed to a point. Let's assume there's still some infinitesimal matter in there. Let's just assume that for the sake of argument. Then you would have a little ball, right? And you would say, this is the singularity. It's all these atoms crushed into this tiny region. And that's what most people understand by the singularity. That's a little ball that's got all this matter just crunched to impossible distances or size, right? But that's not what these people say. These people say, no, it's a mathematical concept where the function is undefined. Well, that's got nothing to do with a little ball that's got all this matter. Turns out that this ball that's got all this matter ain't a little ball because it was completely crushed out of existence, according to some people, some mathematicians. And so there's nothing there. All that's left, the elephant's gone. He was crushed out of existence. All that remains is the 5 tons that the elephant weighed. So you're going to use the mass of the elephant, without any atom that comprised the elephant. That is irrational, because the definition of mass is quantity of matter. If there is no matter, because it was crushed out of existence and went, to another universe, turned into space, I have no idea, but it's crushed out of existence, it's no longer there can't be any mass. Period. We're done, because the definition of mass is quantity of matter. And so we have all this runaround, okay? They talk in circles, in parables. That's what they're doing. Okay, so let's find out if this singularity thingy is real. And here we have Sabine Hossenfelder, and she's going to tell us right how it is. I mean, some people out there know her, right? Okay, here it is. And this is what she says. She says, so what does the physics say? Okay, physics, science of existence, right? Is the black hole singularity real? Does it exist, right? That's what she's asking. No one knows. They're studying it. They're all doing equations. They're all receiving money for their research. And she says, no one knows if the singularity is real, because we cannot see what happens inside of a black hole. Well, I'd like to throw her in there and find out. Maybe she can come out and tell us. It'd be great. Throw her into a singularity. give us, tell us what you found. And so here, this is my criticism of that. If these equations, here you have two versions of the Schwarzschild radius, right? And if this equation represents something that does not exist, what the hell are we doing in developing these equations for? What is all this nonsense for if there's no such monster as a singularity? And so they have the radius, the Schwarzschild radius is, if it goes to zero, it's absolute nonsense. Absolutely. And so what they say, well, this nonsense we'll call singularity. And so they all study this nonsense, we could say, right? And you'd be right if you say, hey, what do mathematicians do? Black hole mathematicians. Well, what they do, they study zero-dimensional Schwarzschild radius, and which is another word for nonsense, another term for nonsense. So what they're studying is nonsense. Okay, exactly. Okay, and so yeah, there's no purpose in spending money or wasting any type of research on this garbage, because what they're doing is studying nonsense. They're saying, look, what the Schwarzschild radius, it goes small, star collapses upon itself. Great. As long as we have something there, you can still talk about matter and mass. You can say, look, all the matter was squashed to a little ball, a little bead. Okay, fine. It's a little far-fetched, but okay, I'll accept it. But when they say it completely collapses and there's nothing there anymore because you crushed matter out of existence, meaning you turned matter into empty space, which you got to explain how you did that, right? Now you have empty space there, you have nothing there, no matter, then you cannot possibly have mass. Okay, that's the issue. And so if there's no ball there, then we don't have any existence. Or like they said, you cannot talk about when or where. If you cannot talk of where especially, then you don't have existence. And if you don't know when, well, that just settles the whole thing. So these people are talking nonsense. That's what they research. Okay, give me a second here. Remove this. Here we have another fellow. His name is Roger Penrose, and he's a Nobel Prize winner, so better listen to him, okay? He won the Nobel Prize for saying this, okay? So here it is. He says, when sufficient thermal energy, this is out of his paper, by the way, 1965. When sufficient thermal energy has been radiated away, the body contracts and continues to contract until what? A physical singularity is encountered at r equals 0, okay? So what is he saying? He's saying, look, no matter what, a black hole will, okay, contain a singularity. You cannot say, well, is there a singularity there? Do I need to jump into a black hole to find it there? This fellow proved that mathematically that you don't have to jump into a black hole to discover or, come up against the singularity. He says all black holes have to have a singularity in their center. That's what he was saying, okay? And that lasted for what, 65, what is that, 60 years almost? Okay, so everybody is on the same wavelength with this. Here you had, I showed this the other day, but let's go with it again. It says, Eddington was shocked by the implication and he refused to believe Chandrasekhar's result. What did Chandrasekhar say? Well, he says that a star collapsed to 0 size, okay? So we have the singularity, which is the remnant of a star. And what is the singularity? It's 0 size. Okay, he's saying there's one there, according to Penrose. This fellow is saying there's also one there. You have a singularity. What is that? A 0 size object, mathematical object, or whatever they want to call it. Okay, so there's something there called a singularity, and it's 0 size, and it creates all this humongous mass that moves stars around. Great. But what they're saying is it collapses to a point. Okay, there's a point, a center of a black hole. That's what they're saying, both of them. Chandrasekhar as well as Penrose, okay? And just in case, here we have another fellow, and his name is Kerr, okay? He's I guess a New Zealander or Australian. I think he's New Zealander. And we have Matt O'Dowd from Spacetime PBS, right? Saying that this fellow just came up with something new. And this was in December of 2023. So we're having a change here that you better notice very quickly, because they're going to get rid of that singularity. Okay, that's what they're going to do. Okay, they're going to get rid of the singularity. They're going to give you a ring singularity. It's not really that point, it's going to be a ring. Okay, so let's find out. Here's Dowd, and he says the following. As long as an event horizon exists, so must there be a singularity. Singularity exists, right? And that's essentially what Penrose says. This puts GR in direct conflict with QM, okay? Because we have a, when you're talking about little dot, right now relativity is now approaching quantum mechanics. And quantum mechanics deals with the world of the small, right? But Kerr, this is a fellow from New Zealand, right? Says Roy Kerr, right? Proposes that the geodesics of objects falling into a black hole do not have to be pinched off, because if you have this pinch off, you get zero, right? But he says they don't have to be pinched off at zero. Okay, this is his new paper in 2023, right? I guess he wants a Nobel. And he says, and some were suggested but not proved by Penrose. So Penrose, according to him, has not proved that a singularity must exist in the center of a black hole. That's only if it's pinched off. All that's matter, all these geodesics, all this, scary stuff. If the geodesic is pinched off, then you have a singularity. But he says, not necessarily do you have a pinch off. The geodesic path of objects, they're talking about paths. They forget about the objects. Now they're talking about itineraries, okay? That's what a geodesic is. Geodesic is the line, the itinerary that left by an object. But they get rid of the object, they just start talking about geodesics. Okay, so see, it says the geodesics, paths of objects, right, can wind around in the region between the inner and outer event horizon. What the hell? So they have this black hole, right? And it used to have only one event horizon. Now, because they couldn't answer a lot of questions, they invented a second event horizon. There's one on the inner side and one on the outer side. There's two event horizons. What was the event horizon? Well, that area where, you had the speed of light. You need escape velocity of the speed of light to be able to escape, and you can't because you can't travel faster than the speed of light, so that's the boundary, okay? But now they created an inner boundary and an outer boundary. They have two boundaries, okay? That's the new religion that's coming up. Get prepared, be prepared for it, okay? And so he says, Kerr concludes that a compressed star can exist inside a black hole. So the star has not disappeared. It's still revolving around. In fact, he says something even worse, that it can be spat out. Whatever object, whatever garbage fell into a black hole, rocks or trees or whatever, dogs, can be spat out back again. Okay, that's what he's saying. Very scary stuff now. So they're changing the rules now. If you ever thought of the black hole with a little dot in the center, not anymore. Now it's going to be a ring, and this guy's going to go around the ring and get spat out. In fact, I'm going to illustrate it in a second here. So this is from Kerr's paper. Okay, he says, there is no proof that black holes contain singularities when they are generated by real physical bodies. Roger Penrose claimed 60 years ago that trapped surfaces inevitably lead to light rays of fine length. Okay? Penrose and Stephen Hawking then asserted that these must end in actual singularities. Little point, pinch off of the geodesics. When they could not prove this, they decreed it to be self-evident. It is shown that there, in this paper, right, he says, it is shown that there are counterexamples through every point in the Kerr metric. These are asymptotic to at least one event horizon and do not end in singularities. So what did Kerr do? He created itineraries, geodesics, that instead of pinching off, merging and pinching off, he's got them rolling around the black hole singularity, I guess, the center of the black hole, whatever we're going to call that from now on. And so they create a ring. And here, let me illustrate that for you. I think I've got it here. I think it's this one. There it is. That's what he's suggesting. He's saying, look, a thing falls in there, and instead of falling to the singularity, it rolls around in a ring-shaped or hula hoop type thing. Okay, so you're looking at itineraries here that are going around. Okay, so he's saying, look, these things just go around and around, never reach the singularity, and if they're lucky, and they can exceed the speed of light or whatever, they can be spat out by the black hole as well. So we have this inner and outer event horizons. Get ready for this. This is the new religion. They're going to shove it up your nose holes, okay? So be ready for it. Okay, and so now that we settled all that, we all know what a singularity is, and that there are no singularities in black holes. It's just ring singularities. Here we have another Nobel Prize, just in case, and that's Kip Thorne. And he won the Nobel in 2017 for LIGO, right? He's an expert in black holes, all this nonsense, right? And he says a black hole has a horizon, which is the surface of the black hole, except it's not a hard surface like a surface of a billiard board, okay, ball. And it has a singularity at the center, okay? So according to him, we have a singularity still there alive, right? It's not a dense object made of matter. There's no matter at all. There was matter in the star that gave birth to the black hole long ago. A star like our sun, but somewhat heavier, implodes, and all the matter in that star goes crashing into the center and is destroyed at what we call a singularity. Okay, great. There's nothing left except this warped space and warped time. So what is a black hole made out of? Well, it's this singularity, whatever that is, but primarily it's made of warped space and warped time. That's what it's made of. Okay, warp time. You're reading it correctly. I didn't cheat there. I'm using his exact words, right? A black hole is an object that is made not from matter, but from warp space and warp time. That's what it's made out of, folks. Okay, the mass or energy in a black hole is actually not concentrated in the singularity. Okay, I thought it was all there in that little point, that held all the mass, all the matter crushed out of existence. Not true. It says all the mass and energy of the star in the end goes into warping of space and the warping of time. So all the mass and energy is contained in the warping of time. There you have it. And space, yeah, they warp space as well. We know black holes are there with 99.9999999 confidence from interval, I guess, right? From observation mixed with a little bit of theory. Okay. We know that in our galaxy there are roughly 100 millions of these objects. Okay, so there you have it, folks. We've proven it. They exist. Take it or leave it, whether you like it or not. And all that mass, all that energy was not in the little point at the center. It's in the, it's contained in the warp space and the warp time, whatever that means. The other guy says, no, it's twirling around in the geodesics that don't fall, don't get pinched off at the singularity. They just go around and round and round forever. And sometimes, the thing comes back out. I give up on singularity. I'm not going to try to understand them. Okay, so here we have some more evidence, proof. What happens when you fall into a black hole? I mean, that's a singularity. You're going to fall to the singularity. What happens to you? I mean, if there is a singularity, according to Kerr, there's no singularity. You just go around and around. The other guys say, no. You fall into that little pearl at the center, zero-dimensional pearl, no shape, no volume, no nothing. Okay, here it is. You'll be ripped to shreds before you reach that singularity, says Victor Toth, a guru at in Quora, right? Says you'd ultimately end up being crushed to a point. Okay? So you're there, you end there, that's the end of you, and that's for sure. If you fall into something like this, what they're saying that all your atoms get crushed out of existence, all the matter in your body, well, yeah, I guess that's the end of you. I don't know if it's the end of time, not for me, but it is for you. Not for me, but it is the end of time for you. I'm going to fall into singularity in a couple years. It'll be the end of me. Okay, here's Sabine again. What does she tell us? She says, what happens if you fall into a black hole singularity? Well, you die before you reach the singularity. Okay, that's great. But if your remains reach the singularity, then that's just the end. The sign with the end, prepare to meet thy doom. There's no more space and time beyond this. Okay, you reach the end of the line. There's just nothing. At least that's what the mathematics says. Okay, so mathematics says that it's the end of you. You fall into the. But again, it means that's the end. It means you do fall to a little point called a singularity, and you get crushed out of existence, just like all other matter. But there's a point that is just nothing. No volume, no mass, no nothing, no mass, because, mass is quantity of matter. except if it's warp time, which is beyond my understanding. I don't know what that means. What mass being the warpage of time? That's deep. Okay, here we have another fellow, and he's from Reddit. And all these are physicists, by the way, okay? The equations of general relativity indicating falling object will hit the center in what? Finite time. So you have so much time, I don't care how fast it is, whatever the event horizon is, you calculate the distance from there to the center and calculate the speed of light, and then you can get a value for how much time it's going to take you to fall to the singularity. Period. We're done. Okay? It's finite time. That's what the equations indicate. Okay? The object, according to its own clock, will not take infinitely long to reach the center. Instead, the time will be finite. We got that? It's finite time. Okay? As to the nature of the stuff that actually reaches the center, it's hard to say. Yeah, of course, because they don't want to tell you. They say, well, it all gets crushed out of existence, whatever that means. We've never been there, so we don't know. That's all they're saying. We don't know. That's the answer. So don't ask. Infinity, whatever that is. But then here we have another fellow, and he's another physicist. He's from Quora, and he's, what happened here? Hold on, give me a second here. There we go. Says, as you fall into the singularity, we do not know what happens next. Nobody knows. Okay? They all talk about it. You get crushed out of existence, but nobody knows. But the journey from the event horizon to the singularity would take so long that you would have literally exist all the universe's time. So, meaning it's infinite. So the other guy says it's finite, and this guy says it's infinite. They're all physicists. They all study at the same stupid schools. And this is what they come up with. One guy says, no, it's finite. The other guy says it's infinite. Whatever. And whatever comes out of their nose holes. That's what they put out there. Okay, and just in case, you always have to talk to the bot. Okay, the AI bot, okay, R2D2. So let's ask him. Maybe he knows something that we don't know. So what does the bot say? It says, once you consult him, right? Once you cross the event horizon, all paths lead towards the singularity at the center of the black hole. So you do travel to the center of the black hole to the singularity. Great. What am I going to find there? From your perspective, you would continue falling inward and would eventually reach the singularity. So we do reach there, whatever time it takes. I guess that's a finite point, right? So finite time, where the laws of physics, as we know them, break down. Whatever that meant. Because this other physicist says we don't have any idea what that means. The laws of physics, the laws of math are crushed out of existence. I have no idea what all that means. So I'm sorry I'm not able to tell you anything about a singularity today, because the people who created singularity cannot tell me. They cannot tell themselves. They have no idea what it is. They don't define it. They have no idea what happens inside a black hole because they've never been there. But they all do equations of black holes and what happens, speed, existence, whatever they do out there. They get millions of dollars to tell you that they don't know. And that's a wrap for the singularity.